Now, in chapter one, we already finished our discussion about some very basic economic development theories, okay, including Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and Thomas Malthus. And we also took an overview of these Asian economies, okay, in different aspects, from their economic growth to income level, investment, education, etc. Okay. Now, here in the second chapter, we're gonna take a deeper, or I could say much deeper, look at Japan. Okay, and the title of this chapter is Japan the Leader. What we want to see with this title is Japan is actually the first country, not just in Asia, but even around the globe, which is outside of the Europe and North America, but become the modern economy, with the higher income and advanced political institutions. Okay, so Japan is the first one, and it already finished its transformation to the modern economies, even back in 1960s and 1970s. Okay, so in many ways, economically, politically, culturally, Japan is actually, leading this journey, okay, and it's actually the role model for other Asian economies or other developing economies around the globe, okay. Right, and today we know that Japan is the third largest economy, okay, with its GDP approximately about $5 trillion US dollars. Okay? And even with the rising power of China and India, Japan is still a very important power in Asia. Okay? And it has a very strong influences upon other countries, okay, in Southeast and South Asia. All right, so here to understand the Japanese economic miracle, we have to figure out the starting point of its economic takeoff. Okay, and when did it happen? Okay, or when did it started? Catching up with the other Western economies. So here, what we see is a gapminder figure. The vertical axis is the income per person, okay, and the horizontal axis is time. So we put Japan here, the red curve, and the United States, the green one, and the UK, okay, the yellow one, in the background, so that we can use these two Western economies as a benchmark when we talk about Japan. Okay. Now here, when we talk about Japan, most people would say that the Japanese economic miracle took place after World War II. In other words, Japan caught up with other advanced high-income Western economies very quickly since 1950s. Okay. However, when we look at this gapminder figure, you could actually find that the Japanese economic takeoff actually started way before the World War II. Okay, it could go all the way to mid 19th century. Okay, approximately 1950 to 1960. We already saw that Japanese economy start taking off. Okay, of course it's not that like very steep one we saw after World War II. Okay, But again, at least it's already, start taking off. Okay, even for the exponential growth, or exponential, function at the beginning stage, we won't be able to see a very steep curve, right? And in history, from 1868 to 1939, this is what we call the Meiji Restoration. Okay, that historical period. Of course, because it's named after the Emperor Meiji, and some historians would prefer to call, Meiji Restoration between 1868. That was the year when Emperor Meiji formally becomes the leader, of the country, and some historians would say, like 1912, I believe, when the emperor died, that should be the end of the restoration period. But other historians would say, the restoration itself goes far beyond the influence of the emperor himself. So they would, cover all the way to 1939, okay, till that year. So it's right before the outbreak of World War II, okay, or before Japan invaded China. Okay. All right, and to better understand the Meiji Restoration, okay, or this Japanese economic takeoff, let's take a look at another table. Okay, but here, if there were no World War II, you could, simply connect this point in 1939 all the way to probably, 1960s, 1970s. You would find that, Japan could even, catch up with the UK earlier, okay, probably in late 1950s or early 1960s. Okay, and because during the World War II, a lot of the factories, a lot of productive facilities in Japan were destroyed. Okay, and so that's why it took a deep dip, okay, or dramatic dip of its income level. Okay, it decreased from above $4,000 per person to $2,000 per person. Okay, about half of the income was destroyed. Okay, because of the war. And after that, it recovered or caught up very quickly. Okay, and here this table shows the international comparison of long-term economic growth up to 1963 to 67 from the start of modern economic growth, MEG. Now, why we look at this period up to 63 to 67? Because in the previous slides we already said that in 63, 67, that was the years or the period the Japanese income per person already caught up with the British level. Okay, in other words, it already become a high income advanced economy. Okay, now MEG, modern economic growth, means a long-term rise in capacity to supply an increasingly diverse goods, and based upon the advancing technologies and the institutional and ideological adjustments. So here we can find at least three things. Number one is the increase in the productivity. Okay, I'm sorry, the productive capacity. Okay, so it will be able to produce more, not in quantity, but also in terms of the the variety, right? Different goods and services. And the second thing is based upon advancing technologies. Okay, so technological innovation got to be there. Okay, they got keep adapting the new technologies in its production. And the third one is institutional and ideological adjustments. So here we're talking about, like culturally or politically, there got to be some institutional change, okay, and so that the whole economy would finish its transformation and become a modern society. Okay. Now here in this table we look at the MEG across these advanced economies. As you can see here, all of other economies listed are the Western economies, okay, including the U.S., Great Britain, France, Germany, Australia, all of these. And Japan is the only one outside of that geographical or cultural group. Okay, and the first column shows the starting point of their MEG in different countries. The second column would be the duration, in other words, how long did that last? Okay, and then the last three columns are the growth rate of the income and population and per capita income. Okay, now for Japan, here we look at two studies, one from Kuznets and the other from Okawa. Okay, and based upon their estimation, okay, we find Japan's MEG started from again the 1874 to 79 or 1885 to 89. When we compare these with other starting point of MEG, you would find that Japan actually started at least a decade later. Okay, when we compare, for example, Japan with Norway or Denmark. When we compare it with Great Britain and the U.S., you would find that Japan is, far behind, okay, when they started this modern economic growth. Okay. However, Japan actually spent a relatively shorter amount of time to catch up. Okay, less than 100 years or 1 century, for them to achieve a relatively high level of income. Okay, and here you can find that it's the growth rate of its per capita income is almost the highest. Okay, compared to other Western economies. Okay. Now here, if we want to have a solid understanding of why that happened in Japan instead of other East Asian or Southeast Asian or South Asian economies, and how it actually happened, okay, and we have to again go back in history, not just look at the Meiji Restoration, but even look at the last shogunate in Japan before the Meiji Restoration. Okay, now and the shogunate means the military government, okay, in Japan, and that's the kind of the historical period before Meiji Restoration. Okay, so in the next video we're gonna talk about that, and also I posted this short the documentaries on our Moodle site, so you can go ahead and check out that documentary. It will give you a lot of interesting background information about the traditional Japanese society, their culture, okay, and their social problems before the Meiji Restoration.